Natalia and Adam from Propy. Thank you guys so much for coming on. I'm really super looking forward to this conversation, and I expect I'm going to learn a ton from both of you in the next little bit here.
Thanks for having us.
Natalia, you have a sort of super interesting background, and I'd love to maybe start with both of you guys' like lives running up to Propy, and then we'll get into like what Propy is and sort of all the interesting questions that unfold around it.
Sure. Well, again, thank you so much for inviting us. I'm the founder of Propy, and my background is software engineer first. Then I transitioned to real estate development, constructing properties and selling them cross-border in Europe. And then I was just wondering why had technology drastically changed everything. We're buying online, but not real estate. And so 5 years ago, I decided to move to Silicon Valley and dedicate the rest of my career to automation of real estate transactions. And this is where I met all those blockchain, smart contract geniuses, and we decided that the best infrastructure to build this new generation technology.
Is that when you met Adam? He was
yes.
Yes, one of the parade of geniuses.
In real estate. Yes, in the real
awesome.
estate. Yeah.
That is not accurate. She was doing those great things well before I joined.
Adam, what's your origin story?
It's not as exotic or as fun as Natalia's. I
should have let you go first, huh? Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Super exciting times here at Propy. Just really, really honored to be part of the team that's kind of doing things for the first time ever in real estate, which doesn't happen very often. But I've spent about 20 plus years in real estate, whether that's through media or through home services, working with brokers and agents all across the country. My claim to fame is I've been in and out of real estate offices in all 50 states. So I've seen a lot of how real estate is transacted across the country. Been really blessed to work with some of the nation's top brokerages and realtors, and to this day, I consider most of them my friends. So whenever Propy reached out to see if we could work together, for me, it was the first time in my career that I was super duper excited about the technology and the way it's going to impact real estate in 20 plus years. And so Natalia has built a really, really smart team, much smarter than she gives people credit for, because on the front end, you'll see my boss, Joe, or I, and we're not quite as smart as the rest of the team. So really excited to be here, really excited to be part of the team and to kind of do something unique for the first time ever in real estate with the NFT yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, as you say, like real estate doesn't tend to change super often. And as you were saying, you'd been in a real estate office in all 50 states. I was imagining that it just consists of a blur of beige, like all over, no matter where you are. Yeah.
It's funny with realtors and brokers. Everyone's got a unique story. I think if you work in the finance industry, you meet a lot of kids who went to college for a finance degree and they became, a finance major. And then they went on to work at Ernst & Young. You kind of get that background. It's probably pretty similar. But with realtors, you meet them from all over. It's really interesting. And so that the people stand out a lot more than the offices per se. To your point.
Yeah. Natalia, what was I know you have a sort of a deep background in real estate development, and you had been sort of building and selling real estate internationally, sort of in the lead up to Propy. So what was the problem that you initially saw in real estate that you set out to solve when you started this company?
Yeah, I think the main problem is that the buyers, homeowners are acquiring one of the most valuable assets in their life, and yet that's one of the most stressful times in their life. And I've been helping hundreds and hundreds of buyers to acquire real estate in the past when I was building those properties, and I just wanted to solve this problem. It can be more enjoyable and more secure process, because the wire fraud is thriving right now in the U.S. So there are different problems around the world. In the U.S., it's wire fraud, title fraud, stealing ownership from people, from recording offices if they don't have inheritance, for example. There's so many problems that we even don't know about. In other countries, it's corruption when, again, home ownership could be stolen as a right from people who cannot afford to go and fight then there are $9 trillion of unreported land in developing countries. And so basically this eliminates those countries to have financing and basically further enhance and
wow. I hadn't really that fraud exists in the real estate world, especially sort of the wire fraud is something I've been familiar with, but title fraud is not a problem I had really, I kind of took for granted that all of the slowness and expense around title fraud was like kind of doing its, or around the title companies was actually kind of doing its job. Like, what is the scale of title fraud? And I'm sure it varies sort of, as you say, country by country, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, the wire fraud problem is actually a very U.S. native problem because the banks in the U.S. are not verifying the recipient. They just approve the transfers to the account, but they don't verify if they belong to escrow companies. And FBI reports billions of dollars stolen every year in wire fraud. And so there are a number of examples where a family sends the down payment, and sometimes it's like 70% of the home in down payment. All their life savings they're sending into a fraudulent account, and they cannot restore that because title insurance is not covering this type of fraud. And title and identity fraud also is not covered by title insurance. Title insurance is great for claims for the problems in the past, but not for cyber attacks. Not for identity fraud.
That was completely unknown to me. Very, very interesting. Okay. So when you started Propy, you were trying to sort of solve the challenges, the frictions in the market, the problem for the buyer, and sort of bring real estate transactions closer to what it feels like to transact online when things are nice and smooth and easy. But your original vision didn't necessarily include the blockchain, did it? You sort of, so how did the blockchain, like when did you realize that this was the technology that you needed to use to solve the problem that you had picked to solve? I think that's a really interesting sort of coming together.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, back in time when I lived in Silicon Valley, when I just arrived, I didn't have any connections. I just knew that I have this idea, and the core team got together to automate the transaction. And I was trying to figure out how we can address cross-border payment and settlement. So I just, was meeting people at meetups and asking them, please introduce me to some engineers in the core fintech companies that are solving those issues or working in a similar issue. So I got connected to some engineers in PayPal and some startups, and suddenly I started to hear about blockchain from all those, and I began to read books about smart contracts, and that was the aha moment when I learned about smart contracts and how they are basically playing the role of a settlement for any types of rights. And now we're seeing that with NFT art, where you basically transfer art via smart
So
contracts.
it sounds like, you have the perfect background. You had been selling international real estate. You have a background as a computer scientist. You were in Silicon Valley trying to solve this problem and encountered smart contracts and blockchains sort of for the first time in this beautiful confluence of problem and technology and experience that puts you as the founder in this sort of amazing spot. What did it feel like to get feel all those pieces come together? And you already had a team in place too by this point, right? You said you got a core team, you had some funding raised already.
Yeah.
Was that?
Well, fundraising didn't come at once. No, initially it was just a prototype, and our co-founders, we were just working, bootstrapping, working for free for a couple of years before really people started to trust us and believe in us with not only emotional but financial investment. And then we got investors like Tim Draper, a number of amazing angel investors that we've met throughout the journey. And in the end, everything came together, but definitely it was a bumpy road where we all had to make sure we're passionate enough.
And I know I've swam in the waters of real estate just long enough to know that it is hard work, and it's a slow industry, and you need big, it's a very difficult industry to launch an MVP. As you say, like it takes sometimes years, it takes sometimes very big products. So I wonder if we can talk about what, sort of that early product development stage, like picking through to find like what was this first specific problem that you solved, and all the different stakeholders in real estate, because that's, I think, a challenge as well. At least we found it to be a challenge as a young company in the industry.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's really hard to be an early stage company in Proptech. Because agents wouldn't trust you, consumers will not trust you with such a valuable asset. And initially we were just begging agents to do first transactions. It was literally begging. But then when you remember Uber's story also, the founder was just running around and asking people, hey, take my $100 and use my taxi. So it was a similar story. But we've tried with a number of MVPs. The transaction platform was the most successful, and we just bet on it. But besides the transaction platform, we also made a software for counties so that recordings are happening on the blockchain. Some MVPs for tokenization and fractional ownership, and there were just a number of different blockchain applications in real estate that we tried that would complement the automation of the transaction. And then we realized that the fastest way to grow is through the transaction platform, through automating the process and inviting the agents to use our technology. And then the agents are incentivized.
Got it. Okay. So tell me about, so that's the core product today, the transaction automation platform. And
basically, sorry, you asked about the MVP. So the first MVP was a very simple smart contracts and very simple user interface where the buyer agent is invited, the buyer is invited too, and they upload a couple of documents, and then in the end we record the deal on the blockchain. And one of the first transactions was that property, and so that was the first ever government approved deal on blockchain. And then the second one was in Vermont, also government approved, report on the blockchain. So these were through MVPs, but again, besides that, we had to build the MVP. It was also like just begging agents and consumers and our advisors to try.
So the product today, the transaction automation platform, am I correct that brokers are the main customers for that?
Adam, do you want to take this one?
It creates streamlined efficiencies within teams, especially in a market like now where you're getting multiple offers on one listing. We had an agent here. It was in Phoenix. Actually, I had 30 plus offers in the first 12 hours, and so to be able to have all those in one platform, to be able to manage them in an effective way, to be able to communicate back to all those other agents in an effective way, and then also be able to prove to your seller, hey, listen, I've kind of showed you all offers or put it on the table. It does a lot of things. That one, it prevents a tremendous amount of fraud. Two, is it makes the transaction much more seamless. But from a seller's perspective, to be able to kind of see all of those offers in real time, to kind of see, now when you're agent, you kind of huddle up and say, okay, what's our best to work with here? It really is powerful for the seller as well as the agent. And then from an agent's perspective, to be able to kind of say, hey, I can prove that I showed all offers. It also reduces the amount of liability in terms of the seller down the road was to say, hey, did I get every offer? Did you show me everything? Did you lose one in an email? Did a document get caught up in the ether somewhere?
And that happens, yeah.
It really does.
Yeah.
I met with an agent today, and this is a true story. He was out of Miami. They use a Google Doc, an Excel spreadsheet, and Telegram with internally for each offer. They've got different pieces here and there. And so to kind of combine that and make it easy, and then to be able to kind of export that into their title partner or our title services, that helps.
Adam, when did you climb on board Propy?
It was a little less than a year ago. I joined the team. To be honest, the momentum was already well underway. We'd already done the first NFT in Ukraine, so just enjoying it.
Yeah, you kind of brought the real estate experience and presumably some of the relationships and background to kind of help Propy grow and get adopted in the industry. Is that the thinking?
I thought I would.
Natalia's nodding. Adam's going to be too humble to say that he can do anything helpful.
I thought I would, but the first time we went to NAR, which is the National Association of Realtors, which is, the CES of real estate, it was a little bit like being with the Pied Piper with Natalia. All these people wanted to talk to her, and I'd say, "Hey guys, how you doing? Oh, hey Adam, is Natalia coming back?" And that is, one, it's a credit to Natalia, but it really it's a big credit to smart people in this industry see what she's brought to the table. And, there's a lot of people that get really excited about it. There's some people that are afraid of innovation and change, but, we tend to work towards the abundance crowd who knows that there's this technology is going to bring a lot more volume and it'll drive the business forward. But that was a real eye opener to me. I thought I would take Natalia and introduce her to people. Everyone kind of knows who she is and what she's been doing. So
her reputation precedes her.
In a really good way. In a really good way.
Yeah.
Thank you, Adam. Well, we definitely are very, very honored to have Adam on board because when the industry participants have trust in us, we can get to a faster adoption as agents, because agents are those who are bringing the consumer to our transaction platform. Because in the end of the day, it's a consumer-centric product. But right now, the consumer trusts the agent. So it's very important for us and market participants to trust blockchain, to trust the technology that we have built. So we're very thrilled to have Adam.
Yeah. So I have walked some of this path, so I know how hard. So you end up like selling to brokers, or at least getting access through the broker, and then usually that means, and tell me sort of what it means in Propy's case, but like just because a broker works with you doesn't mean an agent necessarily works with you. So you sell the broker, then you sell the agent, and then you have to get the agent to actually refer to the customer. So it's a slog, and it's, there's multiple sort of gatekeepers between a real estate product and the end user, who is actually the home buyer or seller. Does that describe your guys's sort of journey too, or have you figured out something smarter to do than we did?
You're kind of comparing the traditional top-down versus bottom-up approach. We work a lot with brokerages, and we would like to implement at a broker level. But what we really work with is a lot of industry experts that are just real estate agents. So we work with a lot of teams who are driving forward. So it is a bit of a bifurcated mix. We would love to, and most companies in our space would love to go broker, just push it out. But the TM, the transaction management platform, the offer management platform at a broker level is very convoluted. You have 3 or 4 companies that have freemium models. They give pieces here and there. So what we try to do is work with top producers to kind of show them our platform, whether it's a broker level and agent level, put them on there, get high volume through there. Because if you go through the broker training rollout phase, it can be very tedious. As you know.
Yep, I understand. Okay, so talk to me a little bit about Propy in the context of existing sort of transaction management platforms, because there are like Web 2 giants that are transaction management. I don't know a ton of the details of them, but is this a sort of like you're front running a phase shift that's kind of like you're building backwards compatible to Web 2, but you're ready for the next thing to take place and you expect to outcompete them eventually? Or like, are those things going to try to transplant their whole selves onto the blockchain eventually? Like, how do you see this next sort of 20 years unfolding? Because I agree with your vision that we're all going to end up on the blockchain for a lot of this stuff. But I like the Propy sort of like, I don't know, how do you expect the competitive dynamics to unfold with what's happening today?
Let me start, because I think we probably disagree with
Perfect. Good. Strife.
Let's see. Yeah, so I absolutely disrespect this category of a management platform, because the technology has to evolve to wizard-like technology, to wizard-like tools that automates the whole flow of a transaction. And right now there are incumbents that are management, kind of even storage of documents. and we're thriving to become self-driving transaction platform or just a transaction platform. So we don't position ourselves as a transaction management platform, and our goal is really to make closing almost instant with smart contracts and the numerous integrations that we're doing that our competitors in the platform space don't do. So as Adam mentioned, we expect the bottom-up approach where agents will start using us and then forcing brokers to switch to our platform, but we don't necessarily try to replace aggressively those platforms. I think everything will just come into the place. And besides that, our main user is the agent.
Yeah.
They're reaching out to us and we're onboarding them. Also, there is a very big percentage of our user base is the consumer. So basically the sellers and the buyers, they're reaching out to us and they're willing to close on blockchain or do an NFT or find a tech-savvy agent. And that's why also agents like us very much. And brokers that are competing for agents, they also are watching out and trying to collaborate with us and do partnership. Adam, do you agree with my
I
management
do.
platform?
I'm a bit antiquated in the sense that I always try to bring the real estate community on with us, which trying to bring 1.6 million individual thinking peoples is probably not most realistic. I think the thing that Natalia and I do agree on is 100% of what we focus on at Propy is what's best for the homeowner. And we know that if the homeowner is at the end of the day satisfied, taken care of, 100% transparent, the safest with their funds, with their investment, I think ultimately we all win. I think a lot of really smart real estate professionals are looking at Web 2, now Web 3, and saying, hey, how will the industry evolve? And I think Propy and Natalia and the team does a good job of kind of initiating those conversations. But you're going to have a certain percentage that, want to kind of keep things very antiquated or Byzantine in terms of very segmented and almost overly convoluted for the sake of the industry. And that's where technology really does come into play, because the homeowner, is going to start to see, hey, should it really take this long to close on a house? Should I really pay this much title fees for a house that might have been sold 2 years ago? Do I really need to pay title insurance for a house I'm buying from my parents or new construction as it may? So I think that's where technology is going to open a lot of people's eyes, and we're trying to make sure the real estate community understands that, and we all move towards that together.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting. Real estate is just such a perfect sort of place to explore how all these things come together, which I think is, it's something everyone sort of interacts with. It's particularly far behind, but it's really sticky, but the value for automating and improving some of these things with technology is like the value unlock is massive. So yeah.
And Eric, what kind of problem you tried to?
It was much sure. I mean, it was much more around home services. So we were building a marketplace for like plumbers, electricians, lawn care, housekeeping, and we found that it was very difficult to. We found basically that around real estate transactions was a huge surge of demand for like fixing up old homes or moving into them, renovating, fixing unacceptable conditions. And we found that we could go to a real estate agent who was getting asked for all these referrals, and we could basically automate. We were like an API for home services. Like whenever you get a request for something, whether it's a mover or something like that, like we could do that on behalf of the agent. And so then we started going through brokers and automating the outreach and timing all these things out. So it's like, all right, it's 30 days from closing, you need a mover. It's 2 weeks from closing, you need to schedule your painting or your flooring, that kind of stuff. So yeah, I spent plenty of time in real estate agent offices and with brokers, and so I can at least understand the distribution channel. Though I was far enough from the details of the transactions that I can't claim to have any black belts in that. But
helping the same process, work closely with Amazon to launch their home services platform. It is funny, home services, and if you boil it down to, they would call them chucks and trucks, they are very localized. And, if you look at your best plumbers in Kansas City, they might be different in Johnson County than they are in Overland Park. And so it is really one of the last really, really localized pieces of day to day that, you have some companies that have dabbled in it, but, and then to try to put technology into a lot of those really smart plumbing, HVAC, electrical companies, they're a little bit challenged with that. And so it was fun. It was a fun couple of years.
Yeah. It's a difficult industry. It's a huge industry. There's a lot of value to unlock there. It's a grind. I still think it'll happen, but
we
it's a tough
worked with
one.
Google briefly, and they dabbled in it, and then they pulled out of it quickly, and they said, "Hey, this is just too much work for us."
There's a lot of carcasses on that path.
Yeah.
But the old Warren Buffett quote about the industry maintaining its reputation for being challenging, despite how good the managers are and well intentioned. Okay, so tell me about the final sort of vision of Propy, like when Propy is full power and potentially the majority of real estate transactions in the country, if not the world, are sort of enabled by this automatic platform with what I expect is nearly perfect sort of data capture and transparency. What does that market look like? Do we have real estate agents anymore? Is property like perfectly liquid? Do we even own it individually anymore? Or do we just kind of have this weird portfolio? Like, are the rights of occupancy totally separated from the rights of ownership? Like, how do you guys all see this unfolding over the very long arc?
So maybe before Natalia gives her kind of vision, maybe I'll kind of level set on what we're doing today. And then I'd love to have Natalia kind of level set to the next iteration of that. So the interesting thing about Propy now is we can talk to, let's say you have 6 meetings a day with 6 different brokers across the country. You might talk about NFT in a home, which we did successfully for the first time yesterday. We might talk about training in crypto and blockchain, either from very basics to high level tokenization of homes, et cetera. We also talk about the platform to bring transparency to the homeowners. We also talk about our learn and earn platform, where agents can build equity to help drive back their business through the Propy token. So we have, and there are more things, and there are 7 or 8 topics that we talk about at any one time. We're launching a metaverse course for the first time for real estate agents across the country. The first, I always say that we're kind of the industry leader, and it's mostly Natalia and the team that are playing the flag in the ground, saying, "Hey, real estate agents, if you want to come learn about what Web3 is going to bring to real estate, and even today's technology, come to us." And the metaverse class is unbelievable. We have more seats in the class than we can. We have more people wanting to be in the class than we actually have space for. So there are a lot going on.
I saw Natalia tweeting about that. Who wants to be the first real estate agent in the metaverse? Bring it on.
Because then 1,000 people reach out to me and say, "I'll take it." I say, "Well, she wasn't talking to you per se." But the metaverse class is a really good example of Natalia's already thinking about that and how to position realtors to be in the right position. And then it's upon the team and I to kind of, roll that out to the masses. But that's what it is today. And Natalia can speak much better about where it's going to be, 5, 10, 15 years from now.
Yeah, well, definitely there is a lot of opportunity for real estate market participants in the Web3 world for the new real estate industry. But when it comes to the consumer, I think, we would expect more liquidity, and instead of 6 million homes, maybe 12 or 18 million homes to be sold. And primarily, the trading would happen between people, not the institutional players. And hopefully, we will make the next generation very comfortable in acquiring homes when they move to another state, when they relocate. That the purchase process itself will be more affordable. They will not lose 10% of home value every time they acquire a new home. And hopefully we'll just have more control over the housing in the hands of people, whether it's fractional ownership or full ownership, but in the hands of people rather than institutional players.
Interesting. And what about the international sort of nature of real estate? That's something, every time I'm on vacation in another country, I'm always like looking up real estate, and then I just assume it's too complicated to even bother with.
I had this hobby too.
But will it become easier to own internationally owned property?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure. We have a global vision. First, of course, we're focused on the US market, and hopefully if we figure out quickly this automation of transactions, then maybe we will become a transactional marketplace where you can not only search properties, but quickly acquire it via Propy, and then we would go globally. But I had a similar hobby, like whenever I traveled abroad, I would always go to listings and talk to agents and talk to buyers and sellers to understand the market, to understand the listing in the real estate industry. And when we launched Propy, in fact, we dedicated 1 year to international transactions, so that we do proof of concept transactions in a number of countries and make sure that when we build the infrastructure, we adapt our architecture to be potentially globally applicable. So definitely we can go global. We made this business model and the architecture of technology very adaptable to different jurisdictions. And even the NFT also it's applicable to different homes. Like we had the first one happening in Kyiv, but it was still a US based structure, so we can do that with other countries too.
Very interesting. Okay, yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the maybe the specifics of where Propy's product today, what it feels like to use it. Because I think this is another really interesting. Like, do I if I'm a homeowner necessarily, and my agent recommends Propy and I use Propy, like, do I have a Web3 wallet or a crypto wallet that I need to use, or is it really just the fact that the record of the transaction is written on the blockchain, but I, as a user, don't really interact with the blockchain specifically?
Yes, the simple enough answer. So there are a lot of facets to this platform. Whether it's your agent just being transparent on offers coming in on your house, or vice versa, your agent being 100% transparent when you put an offer in on a listing. Whether you participate in one of our NFT auctions that are coming up, where you lock in with your MetaMask wallet, or whether you there's a lot of different ways that the consumer will interact directly with us. By and large, it's mostly through realtors and brokers right now. But the transparency and the ease to the homeowner is where we're always kind of going. If you think about like Wayne Gretzky, he said the key to my success was not to go where the puck is, but where the puck is going. And I think transparency and ease of use from the homeowner's perspective, whether it's, being able to leverage crypto funds in a traditional sense, whether it's to buy with crypto, whether it's to bifurcate the deal, use part crypto, part fiat, whether it's leverage in stable coins without having to give up current, holdings to, avoid taxes, et cetera. Not avoid, but avoid capital gains. So there are a lot of smart ways that crypto holdings and people with crypto knowledge can use the platform to buy or sell in a traditional or non-traditional way. And
that's available today. Okay, cool. Yeah, I've had sorry, go ahead, Natalia, please.
Yeah, I would just add that when the consumer comes on board, if it's not an NFT transaction, then they don't have to have a wallet, but we still record the whole transaction on the blockchain. But very soon, I think the consumer will be ready to have a wallet. So even for traditional transactions, we will encourage them to connect their wallet so that all the data is linked to their wallet. And then for the NFT transactions, of course, they have to connect their wallet. And we saw yesterday that we had some potential buyers that are not coming from the crypto world, and they were able to connect.
Yeah, so let's talk about the let's talk about the NFT transaction. It sounds like that's sort of a separate type of transaction. I know you guys just was it the first NFT home in the U.S. Transacted yesterday? That's amazing. So I guess tell me that whole story, how it relates to Propy's product. Like, it's a very different kind of transaction. It sounds like, if I'm hearing Natalia correctly, from maybe the default on the platform. But yeah, talk me through the NFT home transaction.
So it, I think you and I were talking, Eric, a little bit off air. People oftentimes think of NFTs as just digital assets, which is interesting. NFTs are funny in the sense that everyone seems to have a different opinion on them, and no one can quite agree on what they are. And there's a lot of right click save out there that don't quite get it, and I don't think want to get it. But NFTs, to me, really just represent the next level of smart contract. Open, transparent, distributed ledgers, the ability for me to transfer ownership to you in a really clean, simple, easy way. People seem to get hung up on, which chain are they using, proof of stake, proof of work, et cetera, et cetera. But the reality is, if you just take a step back and say from a macro level, we shouldn't overcomplicate the ability to transfer ownership of anything, whether it's real estate, whether it's digital art, whether it's your service records on your new Alfa Romeo, which they've just launched. The ability to transfer those things digitally, decentralized, make a lot of sense. And so for us with the real estate NFT, what we were excited about is to show the country that, hey, it's pretty easy. It's very popular. We had a tremendous amount of people interested in the NFT in one specific house. And even if you think about the term NFT, non-fungible, from me, a kid from Indiana, means something that's unique. And there's really nothing more unique than real estate. And so we thought it was a really good fit. Natalia's been carrying this idea for a long time. It's her passion. That there will be a lot of people that will do it after us, and it will become the norm. But to be the first to do it, and take that vision, and fight through a lot of regulation and thought process to get there. Real estate is overly contiguous. It's very convoluted and localized, and can be very bureaucratic, almost in self-preservation. So the team worked through all that to get it done, and you're going to see a tremendous amount of NFTs on the platform for real estate this year. So we're excited about it.
Yeah, so I want to hear more about sort of the future plans for that. But can you tell me a little bit about? There's no detail too great here. So what actually is transacted in the NFT? Like, what is the act of turning a property into something that's digitally transactable? Because take me all the way to the foundation of how do we do it today? Is it just it's a file in a title office, right? And probably a PDF somewhere. It's some meets and bounds. Like, what's in the NFT, and how does that connect to the old world?
So in the traditional sense, when you purchase a home, it goes to the county register. It goes through, I make an offer, you accept the offer. We negotiate on inspection. We come to the paperwork. It pushes through underwriting, title, and escrow, and then it gets closed. And that process takes anywhere 45 to 60 days. Very rarely we see a listing open to close or sell to close in a traditional sense, less cash in less than 45 days.
And then is the deed, like the fancy shiny sheet of paper, like is that the core, like most foundational thing that transacts when a property transacts?
As a kid, I remember those old westerns, the guy who had the deed to the property. And even as a kid, I'm like, man, if you lose that, you're in trouble. But real estate's become so decent. It's become so centralized that I don't know if we even have deeds anymore. It's at the county records. It's well within the internet on the interwebs who owns what. So there's very little issue with that. And that's probably one of the things that I think as real estate professionals here in the U.S., we often overthink. When we think of blockchain and cryptocurrency and smart contracts, we equate everything to how we do business. And how we do business here in the U.S. is primarily pretty safe. You and I are a couple of Midwestern guys. We don't have a lot of people come knock on the door and say, hey, technically, this house was bought by my grandparents, 50 years ago, we need to move back in. But if you look globally, a lot of that really does happen. I mean, the volatility of markets, the volatility of governments, the volatility of ownership and who owns what and the ability to enforce that. On a macro global level, that's a real issue. Even something as simple as cryptocurrency and Bitcoin, how it solves a lot of those global issues with the stability of currency. For us, it's just fun and neat and interesting and a good investment in the future. For a lot of people, it's real. Like that's the only way they can hold their assets and keep it in a real way. So I didn't mean to go on there, but so the NFT. Yeah, well,
no, I think I distracted you. Yeah, I got you off topic with the deeds. Go ahead, please.
So how it was transacted on this particular property, and I'll have some title lawyers reach out to me and correct me because they always do. But basically, think of we create an LLC and we place that property within the LLC, and then the NFT is you're buying the ownership or the rights to be that sole owner of the LLC. And within that LLC is the property. So, which is very common in real estate. A lot of houses are placed within LLCs for a lot of tax reasons that are way above my head, state by state. And so when you're NFTing this particular property, it was the rights to the LLC, the house was within the LLC. The homeowner, if they choose to, can keep it in the LLC. They can keep it within the NFT. They can take the LLC down. They can burn the NFT if they choose to. It's all incumbent upon what the homeowner wants to do. So it allows that purchaser to not be bound to anything they're uncomfortable with. And they may do that. They may burn the NFT. They may disband the LLC and just have a traditional home. Or in Florida, they may keep the LLC and use it for some tax purposes that they may see fit. They see fit. And then they may down the road want to sell the NFT and the house and the LLC that come with it.
Super interesting. Okay. And was the NFT transacted then in cryptocurrency? Was it paid for in ETH or Sables or something?
Again,
Okay.
People love to debate that, and I don't want to talk for Natalia, but on a macro level, I see the NFT of homes being bigger than having to create an LLC. I think we'll work through that regulation. I think we'll also leverage other types of stable coins or coins that make people a little bit more comfortable in terms of if you don't have a lot of holdings in ETH and you don't want to convert. I could see it becoming much more macro in that perspective, not being so narrow. And, right now our NFTs, NFT homes have to be owned free and clear for regulation purposes. So down the road, as we evolve, and I think it'll happen quickly, we'll have a lot more of a pool in terms of how you can transact on the house, the ramifications that go into setting the house up, and then, if you have to have which type of coin. And I think right now the coins are pretty transferable, but people get hung up sometimes on ETH. Go ahead, Natalia.
Yeah, in fact, Adam, you're right. And in fact, right now, today, we're discussing with our tech team for the next NFT that is happening on March 2nd to be able to accept USDC, and then for other NFTs to expand the cryptocurrency.
Yeah, it's super interesting. Okay. This is a very exciting topic. So I think, you guys kind of took for granted the solution there, but I've heard some very credible people make a case that things that aren't digital shouldn't be managed by the blockchain or won't be or aren't sort of native to it. But I've also the counter argument that kind of comes from biology and that I see you guys kind of living is that all value is becoming digital or digitizable, and so rather than transact the home and try to move the put the file, you create an LLC, put the home in it, and then that's digitally transferable. Like you guys have been thinking about this problem about as long as anybody else. So how do you think about this sort of dichotomy between like how do you use a digitally native technology to manage and transact things that are so analog? There's nothing more analog than a chunk of land, right?
I actually have this article on Forbes, which is I think 2 years old now, claiming that real estate behaves as a digital asset. Because in the end of the day, we're talking about rights. And rights, it's a social consensus, which is now digital. And that's why rights is perfect item, perfect asset to be recorded on the blockchain. Even now, when you do transactions, relatively traditional, you still use like e-signatures, you send all papers via DocuSign, via emails, and so on. And then recording in the counties are happening in 70% of counties also on machines. So it's the concept itself, it's not the physical asset. And because homes are immovable, it's very easy to prove that this particular home is attached to the rights we're talking about. So it doesn't matter whether we're doing it via LLC or just we're recording the counties. If counties were more open, or if it was one centralized registry that is open to record everything on the blockchain, we absolutely would do these NFTs directly to the deed. But if counties don't want to evolve, they use very outdated software, and because we have developed the software for county, we know firsthand these awful systems, how they look like, how they operate, how their backup work, what kind of IT personnel they hire, and then all those natural disasters and cyber attacks happening where lose data. So that's why we found a way how we can still do the NFT and ownership transfer without county involvement. And in fact, we just, for each house, we create an entity, whether it's LLC or trust, it doesn't matter. Then we record it with the county one time. And from that time, every time we transact, we don't change the LLC anymore. We only change the interest, the member in the LLC. So it is related to the county, but once it's on blockchain, once it's a specific LLC, then we kind of detach home ownership concept from the government. But we yet declare, we report to the counties that the transfer happened. So here are the people that you have to tax.
Very interesting. Taxes. Okay, thank you for that. That is very helpful kind of level of detail. I'm curious how, so you guys, I think, are, again, in this unique position of being a company dedicated to solving a problem before you even really knew that the blockchain was the right solution. And so I imagine you are quite agnostic to what's particular chain. You don't bring any dogma to, whether it's Bitcoin or Ether or Avalanche or anything else. How do you look at those decisions, and how do you say, like, we're a company that's just oriented towards solving this problem, we will use whatever the best technology is that comes around? What's your decision process for, like, what chain or chains to build on, or whether that'll change in the future? Like, how do you think about that?
We are very chain agnostic. We obviously work a lot with Ethereum, but that could evolve many times over. The chain discussion does seem to get debated and has a lot of passion around it. We stay above that in terms of we're going to do what's best, we think, for the platform, for the homeowners, for the environment. But we try to stay chain agnostic, and also to that degree, we also stay coin crypto agnostic. What we think is going to be the best for driving home ownership in a fair and equitable way. But Natalia and the team spend a lot of time focused on what that looks like down the road. I spend the majority of my time explaining to realtors what blockchain is. So there's a bit of a dichotomy in terms of that. And in the Ethereum network, I think, for a lot of reasons, is the easiest to teach people on because it's the one that's most well known. There's books out about it. It's largely stable. And I hear a lot of people tell me the knocks on it, but for the most part, we use that today. But I could see that evolving, absolutely, if it made sense and was best for our customers.
Yeah. Natalia, do you have anything to add to that, or want to tell us sort of what you look at when you look to the future of sort of selecting a platform or a chain to build on for Propy?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's very important for us that any chain we're looking at is stable and it's proven by time that they didn't have technical issues. And even if they had, it's not something critical that can change. The chain could be attacked and be exposed. That's, of course, number one priority in terms of security. And then the number two is the ecosystem, because we need to have enough developers knowing how to write code knowing how to write smart contracts. So smart contracts is probably the third one, because we need to have a chain that has a very easy capability in terms of smart contract writings. So yeah, the language of writing, the ecosystem, how the founding team is reacting to challenges, whether they're open and transparent. You're smiling now, you probably know that some chains recently didn't go through this growth check.
Yeah. Okay, so with that lead in, I'm curious, what are the things in Propy's sort of product that are written on chain now, or that are handled by smart contracts? Because I think there's a lot of really smart people that I talk to who just haven't yet seen up close like they would say, there's no use case. It's all speculation. It's people trading. And I think Propy is probably one of the companies that was that is closest to or using the most sort of smart contract implementations for something that anybody can relate to. So I'd love if you'd maybe talk us through some of those that are either currently happening or on the kind of roadmap for the future.
Well, I normally like to talk about categories of blockchain usage in real estate, specifically 3 types of use cases. The first one is just pure recording on blockchain, recording of deeds, recording of data on blockchain, because then the data becomes immutable. It will help developing countries to avoid corruption. Developed countries like the US, it will help to avoid all those attacks that I just mentioned. That's the first use case. And as I mentioned, we tried, we built the software. We may provide it to more countries when they are ready to adopt this technology, because at the time they were not ready, they didn't have awareness, and it didn't make sense for us to spend our resources there. The second one is smart contracts for workflows, where smart contract basically executes a number of terms within a purchase agreement. So very important for those folks who are listening, and if they're coming with a real estate background but not the blockchain background, smart contract is not a purchase agreement. Yes, we utilize the terms from the purchase agreement, and those terms drive the transaction. So basically what it means, you pay for a property, the smart contract knows that you've paid, whether it's dollar or crypto wire or wallet to wallet, and then the smart contract can initiate the e-reporting automatically. That's kind of a simplified version. Then the NFT transaction, I put it in the same bracket of the same use case, because basically auction NFT, the smart contracts, if you got the money, if you're the winner in the auction, you got the NFT in your wallet. So that's the second one. And the third big one is fractional ownership, which we don't do at Propy. There are a number of other companies that are doing tokenization. We may have something where we just may aggregate fractional ownership listings from other platforms. And this is security tokens. That's why we don't want to spend a lot of time there just yet. But I would say these are the 3 main. Okay,
very interesting. And this just occurs to me. Do you guys spend any time looking at sort of the like online to offline tools or hardware? Like, do you get excited about the fact that like digital locks could update like based on your NFT ownership, and like that's functionally transacting the keys to a house or a gate access or something like that?
Yeah. We actually had some videos shared on Twitter where you approach a house, you have the wallet, you have this NFT, and then magically the smart lock opens. Probably will evolve to this future, right? It's not necessarily our goal right now, and maybe it will be achieved through a different partnership, but it's kind of, it's natural. We're moving towards that. And there were a number of people commenting, it's not easy, it happens this or that, but then the same stuff can happen with a physical key. And even like when you move to a new house, you have to deal with changing all the locks and all the keys.
Okay, sort of last question in the like sort of bridging of old worlds, but we haven't really touched on it yet, is mortgages. And I've seen some sort of interesting proposals, I guess I should say, that kind of combine like some of the DeFi money Legos with traditional mortgage products. I know you said the NFT transaction sort of had to go be transacted in whole for legal reasons. But where do you see mortgages fitting into sort of the future of real estate and the smart contractification of these transactions?
There are a number of partners that are reaching out to us to help them build the products in DeFi mortgage, decentralized mortgage. So I think by the end of the year, we'll have at least 2 very strong companies. And we already have in the space, right? About 2 companies like Milan and a few others. But the nearest use case is when the NFT can be used as a collateral, and the new homeowners of those NFTs can borrow against their home. As you know, now you can get a loan against your NFT, so CryptoPunk. So with NFT home, it's even more.
Yeah, that's very interesting, actually, to think like it might reverse the order a little bit, but the people who are already doing collateral against NFTs, JPEGs, like anybody who squints at that, you just tell them that their home is going to be an NFT in 24 months, and then they'll start to figure out that collateral thing real quick. Okay. So one more kind of this last like section that I'm hoping can kind of like bring everything together for me. I know Propy did a token sale when it was the fashionable thing to do in 2017. And actually, I also saw that your token was just uplisted, or it doesn't count as uplisted, listed on Coinbase for the first time, and it got me thinking. I feel like I had my head wrapped around Propy as a company, and then I learned about the token, and I was like, okay, how does the token fit into the overall product and sort of ecosystem that Propy is building?
So Propy is a utility token which was launched in 2017. This year we had the epic news that it was also listed on Coinbase, and it's a utility token that unlocks smart contracts for every single transaction. And today we've processed over $2.5 billion in traditional deals, all done via smart contracts. And anytime there is a transaction-based smart contract, Propy token is serving kind of a gas fee utility. And so there's a pure utility in the settlement protocol, but also it's being used in our learn and earn program so that we can grow our adoption program via
Interesting. Okay, so what was the token sale process like for you? I mean, was it exhilarating? Was it terrifying? Like, what was it? Hard work to set up?
All of that. Yeah, it was very hard. Yeah, for sure. But we were super conservative. We've hired the best lawyers in the country and made it super clean. We never gave tokens to any of the founders or advisors, and built a pure utility use case.
Did you think of it from a company perspective? Did it solve the same problem as a fundraising round? Was it like this brings in cash that will help us operate for a while, or was it just like, hey, we need a utility token and we should spin this up sort of separately?
The main focus was actually it's kind of a pre-sale of the service. We were selling the service. If the market participants buy it, then they can use these tokens for the transactions that will be occurring on our transaction platform. And this actually happened. Almost all of our buyers were retail buyers. Many agents,
I understand. Okay, so people were basically it's almost like putting a deposit down for like a Tesla, like a Model 3 or a Cybertruck or something. Like they buy the token in order to use the product in the future.
Yes, that's correct. They buy the
awesome.
token.
Okay, and if I'm an investor and I listen to this episode and I think like Propy is an amazing company, how do I think about the equity of Propy, the company, versus like the token? How does value accrue to the token versus how does value accrue to equity? So I feel like there's people who are treating token, like there's DAOs where you can buy the token and it's basically like buying equity in the outcome of the program. But I'm really interested in how, and we can speak in general terms if that's easier, like companies with tokens sort of separate those two things, and what the division of labor is, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, we have some services that we're charging from Propy as a company that cannot be done via tokens. And then we have a transaction platform, which is a protocol, settlement protocol, that requires Propy tokens. So so it is really like some services are sold in tokens and some services are sold in fiat currency. And it does value, do you expect value to accrue to the like Propy token? Is there like a supply and demand dynamic there, or are they just kind of issued as necessary for new transactions? They're not issued. All the tokens were launched in 2017, so there are no new tokens and there's no burning mechanism. So it's like stable and.
Okay, so in theory, as Propy gets used more, or those tokens are in more demand, that price may go up, but it's not like those token holders should expect to receive dividends or profits or ownership in Propy or anything like that. Okay.
That's absolutely correct. So the tokens don't give the rights to dividends or to revenue share or voting rights or rights to the equity, because then it would be
it's like Chuck E. Cheese. So you can buy them and use them in the arcade, and somebody might pay you more for them someday in the future if they stop making. You're not making new ones, but okay, this is helpful. Thank you. It is amazing how many varieties of token types and attributes these things have already. It's really it's legitimately hard work to figure out who's using tokens to do what in what context. So that is very helpful. Thank you. Natalia, I know that you glazed over this in your intro, probably out of some sense of, I don't know, excessive humility. But I know that you also did your master's in sustainable urban development from Oxford. And I'm curious about how your sort of your vision for like the city of the future and sort of your dreams for that, how those have unfolded, and what you see as the city of the future. And that may or may not have anything to do with property. That's just a exciting question to ask, and I would love to see sort of the future metropolis that you dream of.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I definitely dream of more sustainable cities and greener housing approaches. That was my one of the options, whether to build Propy or to build a sustainable community, a smart city, smart community. Which is driven by technology, but mostly by the incentives for the community itself to thrive. And whether it's a city or a community, I definitely see, again, another use case for colored coins or cryptocurrency, where community they're incentivized to have the coin of the city or the community, and thus that they would contribute to the well-being to this community. And of course, there's a lot like IoT involved, and decision making involved, voting. So there's a lot of those ideas that could be implemented, and there are a number of smart cities that are experimenting and trying to build this example of future. So hopefully we'll see more thriving and vibrant communities that
I love that. This is another hobby that we share is daydreaming about the cities of the future, and how they might be greener and more sustainable and more beautiful and more natural and better for all of us who live in them. Thank you.
For sure. Even in Propy, one day, once we turn into a transactional marketplace, we actually want to incentivize greener buildings and assess buildings and homes with their sustainable and green, and give them kind of a priority in listing platform.
I love that. We'll see. It'll all come together in the long run. That's beautiful. Well, thank you both,
Yes.
Natalia and Adam, for taking the time to teach me and whoever stumbles along this journey with us everything that you know, or at least a fraction of what you know about the coming together of Web 2 and Web 3 and real estate, and painting a very optimistic, sort of beautiful vision for what a slow, crufty, outdated marketplace could become with the right technology and the right team.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ari. Thank you so much. That was wonderful.
All right, you guys, hold on.